The cliff rose abruptly from the slope. It was not a clean drop, but a broken face of layered stone that fell away in steps and fractures, catching snow in irregular shelves and releasing it again when the wind decided it no longer belonged there. From a distance, the cliff looked sharp and definite. Up close, it dissolved into angles that never repeated. The snow leopard lay above it. Her body was pressed low against the rock, fur flattened where cold stone met muscle, tail curled loosely along her side to conserve heat without restricting balance. She had chosen this position because it offered both height and invisibility, a narrow ledge where shadow clung even in open light. Below her, nothing moved. The valley floor lay far beneath, fragmented by distance and thin air. What should have been clear, outlines of rock, snowfields, animal paths, blurred subtly as wind passed through layers of elevation, bending vision without warning. The wind was wrong today. It did not flow in a single direction. It fractured. Cold air rose from the shaded cliff face while warmer air slid downslope from sunlit rock above. The two met and broke apart, forming shifting currents that cancelled each other, then returned without pattern. For the snow leopard, this mattered. Wind carried scent. It also carried sound. When it lost shape, both arrived incomplete. She lifted her head slightly and tested the air. Nothing resolved. No prey scent, no rival, no bird movement strong enough to explain absence. The wind delivered fragments, dust, ice crystals, the faint mineral smell of stone, but no story. She remained still. Stillness here was not concealment alone. It was alignment with instability. Moving when the air refused to settle meant committing without information. Below the cliff, a narrow path traced along the slope. Ungulates used it seasonally, cutting shallow lines into snow and soil where hooves found the least resistance. Normally, movement along such paths announced itself clearly. Sound carried upward, scent rode thermals predictably. Today, the path was silent. The snow leopard watched it anyway. Her eyes tracked the edges of shadow rather than the open line, reading absence as carefully as presence. Snow shifted slightly where wind pressed it into new shapes, but nothing displaced it with intent. Time passed without measure. Cold settled deeper into stone. Her breathing slowed further, shallow and efficient. Muscle temperature held steady beneath thick fur designed for exactly this kind of waiting. Then something changed, not below, above. The wind collapsed briefly. For a few seconds, air stopped competing with itself. A single current formed, sliding upward along the cliff face before spilling over the edge. In that moment, scent arrived. Faint, dry, herbivore. It came thin and stretched, delayed by distance and instability, but unmistakable. Somewhere below and to the left, something had moved recently enough to leave information behind. The wind shifted again. The scent vanished. The snow leopard did not move. This was the danger of broken air, not that it lied, but that it spoke briefly and then withdrew. Acting on fragments risked exposure without reward. She adjusted her head by a few degrees, recalibrating angle, waiting for the air to decide whether it would speak again. Far below, a stone loosened and fell, clicking softly as it bounced down the slope. Gravity remained reliable, even if air did not. The cliff held. The wind continued to lose shape. And the snow leopard stayed where she was, balanced between stone and sky, knowing that in places like this, the hunt did not begin with movement. It began with waiting long enough for the environment to stop contradicting itself. The first movement appeared without sound. A shape separated itself from the slope below, not abruptly, not fully, but enough to break the cliff's long stillness. The snow leopard saw it before she understood it, a shift of mass against rock that did not belong to wind or falling snow. An ibex. Young. Not fully grown, but already heavy through the shoulders, horns still short and angled back. It moved along the narrow path cautiously, hooves testing each step before committing weight. Its body stayed close to the slope, head low, conserving balance rather than speed. The snow leopard did not react. Her body remained pressed to the ledge, fur unmoving, tail still. Only her eyes changed, focus tightening, depth recalculating as distance and angle resolved into something usable. She tested the wind again. Nothing. No clear scent line. No confirmation of direction. The air slid past her face in competing layers, delivering fragments that contradicted each other. Acting now would mean committing blind. The ibex stopped. It lifted its head briefly, scanning upslope and downslope, ears flicking once. Then it moved again, following the path toward a section where the cliff face softened slightly and snow gathered deeper in pockets. The snow leopard tracked its progress precisely. She measured distance not in meters, but in effort, the energy required to cross broken ground, the number of bounds needed to close space, the margin for correction once gravity took over. The wind shifted again. This time it pulled downward. Cold air spilled over the cliff edge and dropped toward the valley, dragging scent with it. For a brief instant, the snow leopard caught it clearly. Warm hide, dry hair, faint sweat from exertion. Close enough. Then the current fractured again. The scent tore apart, thinning until it meant nothing. The window closed. The snow leopard did not move. She waited for repetition. Prey rarely offered a single opportunity. Movement repeated. Wind cycles returned. Acting on the first fragment was how injuries happened. The ibex reached a slight bend in the path and paused again. Below it, the slope steepened sharply. Above it, the cliff face rose in broken steps, offering possible escape routes upward. Difficult, but available. The snow leopard's body tightened, not to spring, to prepare. Her forelegs shifted imperceptibly beneath her chest, claws flexing into stone to test grip. Muscles along her back, loaded with stored energy, held without tremor. The wind collapsed a second time, this time longer. Air flowed cleanly upslope, uninterrupted, carrying scent directly to her position. The ibex's presence sharpened into clarity, position, movement, readiness. The snow leopard rose into a crouch, slowly. Her body unfolded from stone without sound, weight distributing evenly across limbs. She did not leap yet. She adjusted position along the ledge, angling slightly left to align descent with the ibex's path. The cliff edge lay just ahead. Below it, broken shelves offered a descent line, steep, fast, unforgiving. Once committed, there would be no stopping until ground changed character. The wind wavered, not fully broken, unstable. The scent thinned again, but did not vanish. Enough remained to guide direction, not enough to guarantee timing. The ibex moved. It stepped into a more open stretch of path, hooves crunching lightly into snow that had settled deeper here. Its pace slowed slightly, effort increasing. The snow leopard reached the edge. Her tail lifted slightly for balance. Her head lowered, eyes locked not on the ibex's body, but on the space it would occupy in moments to come. This was the risk. The wind had not settled. It had merely paused its argument. The snow leopard held at the edge, body compressed into potential energy, waiting for one more confirmation, one more clean breath of air that would tell her whether the environment would support the decision she was about to make. Below her, the ibex paused once more. Above her, the wind shifted again, and in that unstable space between stone and sky, the hunt balanced on a condition that could not be controlled, only read briefly before it changed again. The decision did not feel sudden. It arrived already formed, shaped by everything that had failed to resolve before it. The snow leopard did not leap because the moment was perfect. She leapt because the moment would never be better. Her body released, not explosively, but completely. She left the ledge in a controlled drop, forelegs extending forward as her hindquarters pushed just enough to clear the edge without wasting height. Gravity took hold immediately, pulling her down and outward along the cliff face. The first landing came fast. Her forepaws struck a narrow shelf dusted with loose snow. It collapsed under her weight, not fully, but enough to slide. She did not fight it. Fighting would have broken balance. Instead, she let it move, adjusting angle mid-slide and pushing off again before friction disappeared entirely. Stone rushed past her flanks. Wind tore at her fur, no longer fragmented now, but forced into a single downward stream by her movement. Sound vanished into speed. There was no time to listen. Below, the ibex reacted. It launched forward along the path, hooves striking hard, snow spraying outward as it committed fully to escape. The hesitation that had held it moments earlier vanished, replaced by direct, exhausting effort. The snow leopard descended diagonally, not straight down. She used the cliff's broken geometry to her advantage, bounding from shelf to shelf, each impact brief, each contact measured. Her body stayed low and fluid, tail extended wide to counter rotation, claws cutting shallow lines into stone and ice. The wind shifted again. This time it worked against her. Air spilled upward from below, colliding with her downward motion and flattening scent into nothing. The ibex's position vanished from her nose entirely. Sight became the only guide. Distance closed unevenly. At times, it seemed to shrink rapidly as the ibex struggled across deeper snow. Then it widened again when terrain favoured hooves over claws. The snow leopard adjusted constantly, altering stride length, angle, timing, never repeating the same movement twice. A shelf gave way beneath her hind legs. It broke cleanly, sending stone and snow downward in a short, violent cascade. The snow leopard lost height abruptly, body dropping farther than planned before landing hard on a slanted face below. Impact drove breath from her chest. Pain flared briefly along her shoulder, sharp but contained. She absorbed it and moved immediately, refusing to let gravity claim momentum she did not control. The ibex reached the end of the path. Ahead, the slope opened into a wide, uneven snowfield scattered with rock outcrops. Escape routes multiplied here, so did uncertainty. The snow leopard reached the lower shelves seconds later. Her descent ended not with a stop, but with a transition, speed flattening into stride as ground changed from vertical negotiation to forward pursuit. Snow grabbed at her paws now, deeper and less predictable than stone. The wind lost shape again. It scattered, swirling low across the slope, lifting snow into thin curtains that erased detail and distorted movement. Vision flattened, depth compressed. The ibex cut left. The snow leopard followed, but the angle was no longer ideal. The ground stole speed. Each bound cost more than it returned. She felt the balance shift. Not failure, recalculation. The ibex gained distance with each stride now, legs burning but rhythm intact. It angled toward broken ground where upward routes reopened, where height could be traded for distance again. The snow leopard slowed, not abruptly, deliberately. She did not stop because she could not continue. She stopped because the equation had changed. Continuing would mean chasing into terrain that favoured the ibex without offering compensating advantage. She stood still, chest heaving, sides rising and falling hard now. Steam lifted briefly from her muzzle and vanished into moving air. Below her, the ibex ran on, not looking back. The cliff face loomed behind her, indifferent, offering no commentary on what had just passed. Snow settled briefly where stone had fallen, then lifted again as wind returned. The descent had taken everything it offered. The hunt had ended not with contact, but with information about wind that could not be trusted, ground that did not repeat itself, and timing that did not wait to be perfected. The snow leopard turned her body upslope. Climbing back would be slower, harder, but safer now than continuing forward without advantage. She began to move upward again, step by careful step, knowing that here, survival depended less on capture than on recognizing exactly when the environment stopped supporting pursuit. And the wind, still without shape, offered no argument against that choice. The climb back began immediately. Not upward at first, but inward, toward control. The snow leopard angled across the slope to reach broken shelves where ascent could be taken in segments rather than forced in a single line. Each step was smaller now, more deliberate, chosen for reliability rather than speed. Her body carried the cost of the descent. Muscles trembled faintly under load. The shoulder that had taken impact answered with dull resistance, not pain that stopped movement, but pain that reminded her where limits now lay. She adjusted without hesitation, redistributing effort across the remaining strength. The wind offered nothing. It moved again in layers, sliding past rock and fir without forming a single direction. Scent was gone entirely. The ibex's presence no longer existed as information, only as memory. That was acceptable. The snow leopard climbed not to pursue, but to restore position. Higher ground returned advantage even without prey. It restored sightlines, reduced risk, and allowed the body to cool evenly instead of burning itself in unnecessary motion. When she reached a familiar ledge, she stopped. Here, shadow held. Stone answered weight honestly. Snow clung just long enough to show shape without lying about support. The wind brushed past instead of colliding. She lay down briefly. Not to rest fully, to reset. Breathing slowed, heat redistributed. The rapid pulse of pursuit drained away, replaced by the deeper rhythm of waiting. What had been spent would return slowly, over hours, not minutes. Below her, the slope emptied. The ibex did not return. It would not. Paths that required such effort were not retraced without need. The mountain swallowed its movement quickly, folding tracks into wind-sculpted snow until nothing readable remained. The cliff face resumed its earlier silence. From this height, nothing suggested that anything had happened at all. Stone held. Snow shifted and resettled. Air continued to misbehave, breaking and reforming without concern for what depended on it. The snow leopard lifted her head once more and watched. Not the path, not the valley, the air itself. She waited for patterns that might not come today, for wind to choose a direction, for sound to travel cleanly, for scent to arrive without hesitation. If none of that happened, she would still remain. Hunting here was never about certainty. It was about restraint. She rose at last and moved away from the cliff, slipping into broken ground where cover returned and height no longer demanded constant negotiation. Each step erased her presence almost immediately. Behind her, the cliff stood unchanged. The wind continued to lose shape, and the snow leopard carried on, not fed, not injured beyond recovery, but informed, knowing that in places like this, survival belonged not to those who acted fastest, but to those who stopped exactly when the environment stopped making sense.